This is Reel to Reel. Wake up, and we're going to do Paul for today. Here's the plot. Grammy Willie and Clive Gollings are British comic book and sci-fi enthusiasts and best friends who travel to the United States to attend the annual San Diego Comic Con. The two then embark on a road trip through the southwestern U.S. to visit UFO sites on a remote desert highway at night. After a brush with homophobic rednecks at the diner, they watch a car driving erratically and crashing. They stop to offer assistance to the driver, who is revealed to be an alien named Paul. Paranoid alien ultra life force. Graham agrees to give a ride to Paul despite Clive fainting and wetting his pants upon seeing him. Later, Special Agent Zoli of the Secret Service arrives at the car crash site, informing his unseen female superior, the big guy, that he is closing in on Paul. She sends rookies Haggard and O'Reilly to assist. Clive remains paranoid over Paul's intentions, considering his appearance evidence of a conspiracy, until Paul tells them the government fed his image to the public to keep them from her father Moses. To keep them from panicking if anyone encounters his race. They later camp at an RV park run by Christian fundamentalists, One-Eye Ruth Briggs and her father Moses. The next day, when Ruth sees Paul, she faints, so they take her with them. During an argument, Paul convinces Ruth to question her beliefs and uses his healing power to cure her blind eye. They stop at a bar, and Ruth calls her father, but Zoli interrupts the call. She is then accosted by the rednecks, and a bar fight ensues. They escape when Paul terrifies the rednecks into fainting. Later, at another RV park, Ruth is questioned by Agent Zoli, but plays dumb and escapes. Meanwhile, Haggard and O'Reilly have figured out about Paul. When they confront Zoli, he orders them to return to base, but they go behind his back and try to catch the alien on their own. The group soon arrives at Terrace, who rescued Paul when he crashed on the Earth 60 years ago, accidentally killing her dog, hence Paul's name, in the crash. As no one believed her story, she has spent her life as a pariah. Although angry at first, she forgives Paul and makes coffee for her visitors. Just then Haggard, O'Reilly, and Zoli surround the house. They flee, but O'Reilly shoots at them, igniting gas from Tara's stove and destroying her house with him inside. Haggard pursues and catches up to the RV, but loses control and drives off a cliff. Zoli reassures the big guy that he will have Paul within the hour. But tired of waiting, she orders a military response. Paul, Graham, and Clive, Ruth, and Tara arrive at Devil's Tower National Monument, where they set off fireworks to signal Paul's mother's ship. A helicopter suddenly arrives with agents, and the big guy, Zoli, then appears and initiates a standoff, unexpectedly shooting the agents before being wounded. He is revealed to be Paul's friend, attempting to and his escape under the guise of capturing him. During the fight, Tara knocks out the big guy. Moses arrives unexpectedly and fires at Paul, but hits Graham instead. Paul once again uses his healing powers, reviving Graham in spite of the danger to himself, causing Moses to believe Paul to be a Messiah. Graham and Ruth admit their feelings for each other and kiss, and then the big guy regains consciousness and holds the group at gunpoint. Just as she is about to kill them, she is crushed by the landing mother's ship. Paul says goodbye to his friends and offers Tara a chance to go with him, promising to give her a new life after ruining her childhood and accidentally killing her dog. The aliens go home as the remaining humans wave. 2 years later, Graham, Olive, and Ruth are at another Comic-Con where Graham and Olive are promoting their new best-selling novel titled Paul.
The movie would begin with a UFO event in Wyoming, America in 1947. An alien craft would come down, light up a house with its eerie glow. A young girl would be awoken by the disturbance, and on exiting the house to investigate, would bear witness to the craft's crash, with the unfortunate loss of her dog that the craft rather had landed upon. We would be introduced to the occupant, a grey alien, at a later stage. The date of 1947 is significant, as this was indeed the date when a craft crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Alien grey bodies were recovered. There were numerous witnesses to the craft and the occupants, with one at least purported to still be alive. With creation being as it is, its decided upon construction. Always our simulated experiences are according to our design. Through the 5 vehicles of the personal self, we utilize the faculties to generate effects that stem from causal ideas we create. The ideas are like files that make up a computer game. The thoughts, emotions, and imagination, these are the foundation then of the entire simulator of creational experience. As always, the effects generated mirror the nature of the thoughts and emotions, as everything reflects itself in creation, and we experience exactly what we create and decide upon through the 5 bodies of the created self. This then forms the consciousness, the overall vehicle that contains all these decided upon ideas, and the physical body vehicle sensory apparatus decodes these idea files into a simulation, a rolling out of sequences of events, of decided upon time, of distance, like putting on a virtual reality headset and experiencing through its apparatus the game it contains. The headset is the consciousness as we have constructed it, with the required decoding mechanisms to convert all the idea data files into our experience. A species, humans, say, all the individuals would share the simulation that is the planet Earth they inhabit. So there must be collectively shared ideas that feature in the human consciousness, that the overall foundation simulation, the planet, be the same. As such, then, a species simulation shared must interconnect all those within it, in that any human can enter any other human's experience on the physical, and all that would limit the ease by which this was so would be additional ideas unique to each individual. Individual ideas that may translate as geographical distance or other factors that make it easy to encounter certain individuals, or the opposite, or any other decided factor that comes into play. If someone had decided to live at the top of a mountain and are able to disguise themselves as a rock, for argument's sake, say, this will seriously limit their accessibility. And so, the individuals of a species can access each other's simulation generally as they rather share it, like a multiplayer computer game, where you have full access to every area of it where all participants can feature. Unless it were such a game where you can restrict others' access to you by creating certain ideas that limit their ability to reach your location, like constructing private areas within your simulation, as anything's possible in creation, just a case of deciding it and figuring out how to execute your ideas. Different species then, existing on different planets, would still be interconnected to a degree, because regardless of how far habitable planets are apart, the distance that separates them, the overall simulator that all in this creational realm inhabit, is the overall effects of all the consciousness within it, a kind of overall collective consciousness that then has almost like subsidiary consciousness collective groups that spin off into individual species and their shared planets, and then into individual cultures and races within each species who share a consciousness collective unique to them. And we can see then that the more we have links to others, the more ideas we share that make up our consciousness, the more they will readily feature in our experience, to the extent that two individuals share the same simulator, they share the same species, the same race within that species, the same specific area geographically within the race, and so more so must be a directly shared experience as all the ideas between the consciousnesses of the two match up to effectively more or less the same simulation. But realistically then, as we all effect the simulator through our collective overall consciousness, there are links then between every individual within creation that must by definition then allow anyone to enter anyone else's physical level experience, regardless of planetary distances and diversity of species. But as I said, the less ideas shared between two consciousnesses, the less the simulation matches, and the less accessible one individual will be for the other. So in this case, we have an alien grey, who, although sharing the simulator overall with Tara, the young girl, shares less ideas with the grey, as you would expect with ideas agreed to by different species consciousnesses, hence why they are positioned where they are in creation. Tara on Earth as a human, and Paul as a grey, and so this would make the grey alien's ability to access Tara's simulation far harder, but not impossible, through the technology greys have that enable them to traverse great distances via their spacecraft. In reality, there is no distance or time. In a simulated reality, however, it is an agreed-to restriction through the consciousness, and so the means to move from point to point must also be created, a created idea in response to a created idea. There is agreed-to time and distance, so we need agreed-to mechanisms to operate within such decided-to constraints.
Okay, open it up to comments here. Go ahead, anybody who'd like to share or comment? I'll make the first one here about sharing simulators, and we have here the real guides, and it behooves us to like share their vision, you could say, or their what they see, because they are the greater view, and especially Dwayne, who's here now in the physical and in the creation worlds. Basically, it's his creation, you could say, his view, to share their vision of things, or to share their goals, get on board with what they're seeing, because it just makes a lot more sense for everybody's survival, because again, they have the bigger view. So sharing and getting on board with what they're about. And it used to be funny, Paul Twitchell, 1965, started Eckankar, so that was his vision, and everybody, a lot of us here were part of that. So that vision has left since he left. It left basically at the same time, and it's been distorted from that time on. So his vision and things he created, all the things that the books and the dialogues and the discourses, basically those are past references, and they don't really apply right now. I mean, you can use them, but if you want to be up to date, Dwayne's got the new references. So again, it makes sense to go with what's going on now, with what is seen by Dwayne and the real guides. That way you're more focused. You can get more of a focus and more of shortcut in a way. Otherwise, there's a lot of wasted time, and we don't have a lot of time right now with the world, where the world is. So anybody else would like to share? Go ahead.
Yes, Val, thanks.
Yeah.
That's
Hi, Peter.
cool. I got the receiving of this story about Dave as the common man, suburban
Can
suburbanite.
I interrupt? Can I interrupt you? I apologize, but the movie is Paul. I made a mistake. It's not David, it's Paul. Movie today. So
Okay, Paul. What movie is
yeah,
that about?
it's about an alien named Paul.
An
And I
alien named
apologize
Paul.
again. Yeah, I
Okay.
misunderstood.
Well,
But
let me use
go
this
ahead.
venue to just describe, because I'm pretty sure it's similar. We're talking about consciousness and being in the simulator. It's really the same thing in the sense that the movie Dave is about a suburbanite human who becomes president because he looks like the president who had a serious accident and was incapable of handling the office. And so this guy is taken off the street and becomes the president active, honorary, and has this experience of taking the position seriously at some level where he actually wants to do something which is more beneficial, more than likely, than what the political people and processors are and authoritarians are wanting to have happen. And that's basically what that story is about. And so it's like he steps into the simulator of the presidency and assumes that it is the true reality and that he also is in the position of authority or at least responsibility for the true reality. And by doing so, he actually takes on both the simulator and the holographic, we'll say, projection of the consciousness that he is embodying in order to actually try to do something, we'll say, of the more spiritual value or beneficial context for the humanity and the people of the country. And because he's the most powerful position in the world, so-called, but he doesn't take on this from a position of power. He takes it on just from a position of acceptance of the position, and or thinking that he has the ultimate connection with everything, the national heritage and whatever the political parties are interested in, and the nation itself, the people of the nation, etc. And so this is could be related, we'll say, to taking the position in the current moment, in the now, of the new guides, and or the new reality, that is, of which the new guides are aware. And at the same time, he's also holding on to the institutionality of the past. And this relates because the Sheriff Mack movement, which is to have the sheriffs and the legal people actually acknowledge the constitutional heritage and accept the real position of how and what it is representing and what they could demonstrate in their actual effort and view to creation of, that is, where the country is or where we are going to act in the here and now, or what we will accept in the here and now. That would be, let's say, in this case with the movie Dave, taking the position of authority and acknowledging that he's not into it for himself, which is the real difference. And no one who really gets into that position of authority should be thinking of what agenda they personally want to ascribe to. You know, how well these two movies coincide with this idea, I don't know. But I do know that anyone can move into the real position, even if they're not given that authority by the recognized institutions. And in fact, that is what we are doing, in a sense, because we are acknowledging the real, now, new reality presently, which I'm called the New Ageist, by the way, just because I want to use that term, because this is different from some kind of other generation of the past ages coming up to the present in some progress mode. That is the view that has been established, where the new leaders come in thinking they're going to do something that's a progress, and actually all they're doing is reinventing or regenerating the past ideas and allowing them to become even more in control than they were before. In this case, now presently, they use the simulator as through technology and the artificial intelligence. That is the thing that's becoming an accepted mode of consciousness and adaptation of the present viewpoint. It's not actually the real thing, but this is the simulator's imagery, holographic projection that is being accepted by the majority. Technology and our use of it is determining our behaviors and our determinations of actions in our institutions and government, business, or religious. And at the same time, all they're doing using these technologies to attach themselves to these past generations of references, business, religious, or etc. All of them, government, those are the big three. And these things that have been utilized to create and continue the creation in our world government and our international and our universal positions, actually, that we're taking on. Now, it is because I think we're moving into what I'm going to call a new aegis, and the simulator is going along with that, trying to co-opt it to make sure that the real new age, the real thing, is not actually being delivered or presented or demonstrated. And I want to thank Dwayne here with that, all of that, because I couldn't have put that sentences together at all without the words that we use, keywords being like recognition, intention, and awareness, and demonstration, presentation, and observation, etc. And this whole thing, putting it together and really understanding why are all these movies projecting from the science fiction wise into the present events that have actually already happened, and how everyone is accepting that, and or the other part, which is creating a fictionalized presentation of something that could happen in the present, never actually did happen, such as the movie Dave and becoming, Dave becoming a president, is really no different, I'll say, than the Trump or the Biden or Bush or the Queen or the Pope or Joni and Harold accepting positions of authority or taking those positions on, either way, that they become that in that position, which one does have to do in order to become something or get into the real present and become effective in it. you have to assume the position, you know. Excuse me for using that joke in there, but it's funny because it's kind of like that, assuming this position and then getting screwed, more or less, even though they think that they're moving into a position of power, authority, and domination or responsibility and acceptable, honorable behavior, attitude. Still, it's such a well, I'm going to end there. I'm sure that's enough. I will say this idea I got comes from partially from this. Today we were talking about this New Ages as I was presenting it. I call it the New Arc, and I relate that because back when I heard Dwayne first talk about the New UU, his reference was the New Arc. Was one of his main references, and as I understand it, either word new or arc are directly related. And that Noah's Ark was actually a original kind of presentation of the new UU and being aware of the new wave of the time and surviving the old civilization's context. And the universal ideas, the religious ideas, actually, what I think that what it really related to was Atlantis and its destruction, and what had to happen in survival was to create a kind of vessel where all of the animals could survive and human beings in some new form in the civilization. So the ark supposedly came from somewhere and eventually landed in the Middle East or Turkey or Israel or wherever that ark is supposed to have landed. And that was actually an actuality of some kind that did occur. Now we're up to the new ark. The real solar research vessel is now in the new UU. And so my wife made a terminology she didn't actually mean to say. She said the new arcs. R's, the new R's, she said, like a pirate, R. And they go, wait a minute, the new TARS. That's actually what she said, is the new TARS. And I went, oh, yeah, she got it. You see, it's almost like a subliminal reflection of the real thing. And this is getting through and reaching people. And in that way, it's subliminal. It's part of the simulation being described, and that's really got me kind of excited this morning because I did put those things all together. I'm so glad I got to say them here, and thank you, Val. All right.
Nothing is by chance or accident, but rather by individual design. The consciousness always maps out our simulated experience according to the ideas we have incorporated into it, but most are unconscious of these cause-to-effect simulator-generating mechanics, so they will exercise little conscious control of the thoughts, the emotions, the ideas of imagination they create, which will be forging potentialities of experience in accordance to their nature. Where we focus, where we place our attention, also is agreement to the ideas that captivate our attentions and focus, and will be projecting as readily experiential effects as any thought we might create. So, for most, their experiences are routine to a degree, as most tend to settle for a certain routine of consciousness ideas that suit them, as the personal self derives a comfort from what it knows, what it is familiar with, which projects a standard and routine foundation of experience equaling this, but with all the other random thoughts, emotions thrown out there, with all the attention and focus grabbing ideas and phenomena in creation, so are endless random idea files added to the consciousness and open the individual up to experiencing all manner of potentialities. And as we assume new body types, as each body vehicle transpires, all that we had been consciously agreeing with and attaching to idea-wise, we no longer are conscious of, as when we return to the physical, we have a new mind, like a new computer, absent of any current idea files, until we begin to add them and continue on through creation. Yet these ideas are transferred, in a sense, to the causal storehouse. They become subconscious and continue generating the corresponding effects as per the design of the personal created self. Its subconscious and conscious parts all are the generator of our experiences. And although we share a simulator that anyone can access our simulation, we also can make encounters with individuals more likely, and indeed make them unavoidable, if we latch onto the created idea that another personal self body vehicle consciousness is. If we become attached to it through emotion, positive or negative emotion so called, love or hate, then regardless of distance and so called time, those individuals we shackle ourselves to emotionally, we are destined to encounter unceasingly and continuously throughout lifetimes of creation. For it is as though we have linked our consciousness with that of another, and the two now are connected, like merging two games into one, unless we sever such an agreement attachment. So with attachments between consciousnesses, naturally then this will have the attached individuals sharing experience more directly and more consistently. They will very likely be the same species that shared experience be so, or at the very least will have forged the effect potentiality and extreme likelihood that irrespective of distance and time, even of species from opposite points in creation, these individuals will find and feature in each other's experience. And it may seem like a chance encounter, being in the right place at the right time in regards to Tara and indeed the two main characters in the movie, Clive and Graham, with the grey alien Paul, but these would very likely be agreements and attachments established that would make this so. And indeed, every main character in the movie, as they are directly involved with each other's simulation, have more idea agreements and attachments through their consciousnesses that mesh them together. A little collective consciousness then, playing out their decided dramas, and whatever is the nature of their attachment with each other, for not all attachment is necessarily loving. Individuals can be locked with each other through emotions of hate, a back and a forth, that can spin off across creation and lifetimes, expressing as a back and forth of killing, harming, abuse, etc. They can at any moment change their decided behaviour in relationship to each other, but most operate on a routine, and once an emotion is locked in with the experience of another, even if not consciously recognized, will the individuals have the subconscious inclination to love, to like, to hurt, or kill each other, and they remain karmically embroiled. So we can say that all the characters in the movie are thrown into the mix through their attachments with each other, and they play out their roles in the specific way that they generally do. Paul, Graham, Clive, and Ruth, relatively friendly with each other, with Sigourney Weaver, who plays the top dark force agent, and Ruth's father, quite the opposite. And it's rather apparent as to the emotional attachment between Paul and Clive and Graham, despite the different species and body forms they currently are occupying this lifetime around, the sort of a friendship that doesn't just happen, but is built up over lifetimes. And even though, when meeting again in a new lifetime, they are not conscious of the attachments they share, there will be a deep-seated recognition between them, and they will hit it off and continue from where they left off. From where they left off. That feeling of familiarity with those you meet for the first time, as though you've known them your whole life, etc., and you just get along swimmingly. And indeed, as I mentioned, where we place our focus and attention, that which we chase, the ideas and phenomena, will effect experience that mirrors and reflects. Clive and Graham had a fixation on sci-fi orientated ideas, and coupled with the emotional attachments they undoubtedly had with Paul the Grey, this rather potentially created the likelihood of circumstances and situations reflecting such a sci-fi fixation, a greater chance of something rather beyond the established normals of human experience taking place for them. And so their chance encounter with Paul was again more by projected, decided design, potentialities effected through their focus on all things otherworldly.
I gotta admit, Paul and Dave really not too close together.
No, but you wove it
But-
together. The first comment you made wove it together nicely. At least you commented on my comment nicely. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. But I looked at the trailer and I got it, okay, I've never seen that movie. And my comment about that is the fact that these movies, there's a certain set of movies that seem to disappear. And you can't find them, or you don't see them advertised in this conglomerate of mafia media monopoly that's going on, and they bury the really pure, I'll call them, or what would be a word you would use for this movie, Paul? It's irreverent. You know, the aliens highly using that reptilian language, which I call the 7 bad words, which is the vocabulary they are making sure that everybody uses as much as possible. And that alone blows my mind. But to have the alien come in and start joking about this and that, you know, it's like the aliens with Dumb and Dumber. And let's see what we can do to pretend that the alien isn't here, and he's just one of us. And that simulation of, yes, it's one of us, is in actuality is also presented. You know, humans aren't going to take on to this idea that they actually have alien DNA or a cellular modification, let's say, and or reptilian, although there are a lot of reptilian so-called folks out there willing to cover their bodies in tattoos and definitely be accused of being from the dark side, or whatever the religious term is for that group of people that are unaccepting of the pure, holy word of God, and etc. That whole religious context there that exists. And nonetheless, the reptilian imagery that would relate to people acting in reptilian manner or actually be reptilian in mannerism and behavior and experientially in reality. You know, it's great in the sense of this movie. I saw how they're doing the humor, and I'll just bring this around full circle because, you know, it would be like Kevin here is talking in very serious manner, and this movie is not serious at all, it looks like, at hardly any level. It's kind of a fun juxtaposition, but the fact is that this movie, I never heard about it or knew about it, and I know almost all the movies. So this I find strange, very strange. And but I've noticed it in many ways in my lifetime. I've noticed that some of the best foods and health products and movies and music disappear from the mainstream for sure, and are actually becoming hard to find anywhere. If you didn't make a copy of them to be able to, yeah, you can buy the videos sometimes, but there are a good number of them, unlike Siddhartha, that you can't even hardly find in video. And there's a list of a number of movies that I consider honorable. But there's also other movies that fit in this category with the Paul, which is the Jim Carrey movies, Val, who and the Dumb and Dumbers and Ghostbusters and etc. like that, which have some very wide audience, extremely popular, and made a real important demonstration of the simulation and this coordination of reptile alienation, you know, the sci-fi movies as well, all of that fitting into this category of having fun with the true reality in a way that doesn't make it so everyone freaks out when they see this and becomes that's one way that they're doing this sci-fi program. The other side is, I think there's actually three sides. I think there's the Star Trek, Star Wars heroic part, and like that, Alien, the original Alien movie, and like that. There's these three sets of films. What's the third one? Is the Sirius, Blade Runner, Projections of the Future, the movie with the all the zombie stuff, and horror movies and so forth. Those are three different sets of how they're actually promulgating this acceptance of these ideas so that humanity will be, quote, prepared for an invasion that they don't actually suggest is going to come. They're saying this is all just a movie, don't worry about it. At the same time, here we are through the artificial intelligence, which movies are using that robotic technology to the extreme. There it is, front and center. Okay, end of story? Well, I hope not, but you know what I mean. It's sort of like that feeling of, the end is coming and whatever, like that. So I'm just going to leave it there. Thanks, Val.
Thanks, Peter. Going back to Kevin's, nothing. Well, I remember FDR saying in politics, nothing is by accident. Any event that happens, it was all planned. So it goes to, but what you're saying, Kevin, about karma and what agreements that people have and emotional attachments. I mean, it's all plays into. There's no coincidences. Everything happens by. It just happens the way it is, the cause and effect process. And then routine was mentioned. Routine is both, I see it as both good and bad, if you want to use those terms. Routine lets you, give you more time to do exploration, but at the same time, the routine binds you and restricts you if you carry on too much with that. But it gives you but more time to, you don't have to think about things. You can just do things and go on to other things. It's the routine part. And then agreements, again, I'm reminded of my former wife, where this is personal, but once she told me, I'll love you forever. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that. I remember that because not a lot of people say that to me. But, there's an agreement. If I agree to that, then there's like a binding something there, even though if she forgot it or she will deny it or whatever, it's still a binding agreement if I agree to it. So beyond the time and space factor, it's still there. So something like that you can develop or just hold on to or whatever. If it's conscious, it's cool. If it's unconscious, then it's not so cool. But these things are very interesting, these agreements. Like I said, this one time she said that, which is like only time. But in a way, it's like lawyers and going back and forth with what they're trying to do with people and form agreements or maintain agreements or trying to have someone agree with them. It's kind of a big game in a way, but the agreement with the real reality, the true reality, that's different. Then you're on the right track, you could say, to become more aware. So all these other little agreements we have with the personal self are one thing, but the agreement with the all is, that's different. It's makes sense. It has a purpose. It gets you more awareness, and you learn how the process works for you, and then you can utilize that agreement here. And we need the creation, we need the personal self, to offset what we were not aware of in a way. So we're utilizing the personal self and creation to become more aware through what's not real.
And then we have the inevitable dark force involvement. For the simulation's overall consciousness that affects it has been rather hijacked, taken over, and managed by controlling species, generally reptilian. For the overall simulation must be according to the overall consciousness. And if a controlling species can mould that consciousness in a way that allows their presence and their control, then the overall effect is a controlled simulation, where the reptilians have domination and all others are subjugated to their simulator design. For yes, every individual decides their simulation, so it's rather the trick to get them to agree to being controlled, to install that idea file into their consciousness, that the simulation is so, and over the eons the controllers have secured this agreement, as they have elected to scour the entirety of the simulator, and through intimidation, fear, torture, and marketing ploy tactics, where what they present on the surface is anything but as beneficial as it seems, and represents, in fact, control, so has the overall consciousness, expressing through all the planets and species generally, been moulded to either agreement to a control or agreement to be a part of the control systems throughout creation, and for control to be perpetuated does demand that agreements to it are maintained. You don't want humans, as an example, becoming aware of their controlled situation. You want to limit their sense of what's possible. You want them to remain confined to a social human species consciousness you have created, life according to the controllers, which keeps all subjugated species locked into the one-dimensional parts of themselves only, the literal, physical level, and in agreement with the systems and ideas put forth by the controllers, that will effect always a controlled human experience, and under the hand of the controlling reptilians. If humans see more than this limited, created human experience as provided by the controllers through the managing of the consciousness, they may begin to want to see even more besides, and through awareness, through stepping aside from the consciousness, a consciousness by the controller's design, and therefore one that maintains their simulator as they wish it to be, so a stepping aside from a consciousness is removing agreement from how it is constructed, and so an undermining of the reptilians' designed matrix can be the result. So the controllers will limit all knowledge as it pertains to anything other than their carefully managed human social consciousness, including anything or any evidence of alien life. Generally, the Greys work with the reptilians, so despite a few UFO crashes here and there, the revelation of alien life can be concealed, as the Greys and other aliens are generally in cahoots with the reptilians and the maintenance of the control systems throughout the simulator, so will cooperate in this endeavour of concealment of knowledge. And as it is a managed consciousness, hard will it be for anything other than what the controllers desire to be humanity's collective experience to feature, including the arrival of, say, beneficial, non-destructive aliens, as they can't feature in simulated experience without the agreements to do so. But always there is the possibility of risk-takers, aliens that perhaps go against the dictates of their species and of the controllers, or those that simply choose to operate in such ways that are not generally a standard within the routine consciousness of their species' general drives and intents. And in the case of Paul, then, attachments with what are individuals of a different species may certainly have made his presence on the earth a more likely potentiality, and coupled with his risk-taking inclinations. For to break routine, as routine is generally how consciousness will operate, as it is just a constructed vehicle of ideas, and will just play out the effect experiences accordingly, with the personal self-awareness generally content with its decided routines of consciousness, so it follows that anything decided beyond the current construction of a consciousness must be the real awareness, and a constant risk-taking, a constant stepping beyond what is known, what the consciousness is at any moment, would always then generate that which hasn't been experienced before, and awareness of more the result, the inevitable conclusion being a connection to the real awareness, a recognition of it, and the isness that it is a part of. And we might say that the main group in the movie, Graham, Clive, Ruth, and Paul the Grey, were risk-takers, willing to do what they haven't done before, at great personal risk to their physical bodies, and as they so proceeded with their risk-taking adventures, so would they experience what most may not, as most will sit in the boring consciousness construction that is based on the controller's limited and restrained design. So despite the tight control on the consciousness, a risk-taking maverick grey alien broke through into the human's experience. And naturally, the controllers would seek to lock the situation down, that humanity overall would not learn of the possibility of alien life, a scenario that may occur if little grey aliens were allowed to run about unchecked and unregulated.
Thank you. This crash happened in 1947 in the movie. Is that right? Did you mention that?
Yeah, the Paul crashed his craft in 1947. Yes.
Yeah, that's Eisenhower's time. He's president from 53 to 61. The one who did apparently make a lot of deals with the Greys, and they had a lot going on during that era. It's like introductory. I don't know. A lot of deals were made. I know it. I was familiar with Laura Eisenhower, who makes the New Age circuit here in the United States a lot. She's a granddaughter of Eisenhower, and she talks a lot about the deals they made, and she was even offered a position off planet. I'm not sure which planet to do some work, but she she thought better of it, not to do that. But it's it is a fact that they keep this information for themselves, the elites, and as well as information about anything like financial system, healing systems, technology. It's for them. So the general public doesn't hear any of this, basically. What they do hear is a dumbed down version of it. So partly because the dark force involvement, they make deals with the elites, so they don't want, the deal is, part of the deal is you don't tell the public because we want to control the public, the dark forces, so you can have what you want, but just keep it quiet, keep it to yourself, and then, well, be happy. They just reveal, they like to keep the information, whether it's technology, healing, medical, alien, they keep it to themselves, obviously,
Right.
because of the
Because
control factor
right.
inherent in that knowledge that they have.
Yes. To reveal the Coca-Cola formula. No. We can't do that. The fact that nobody seems to be able to break down the Coke formula, or maybe they have, but I haven't heard anybody actually say this is the actual formula. Yeah, they don't. They can't replicate. I guess even if they did have the formula, they tried to replicate it, they would be accused of plagiarism or copyright infringement, and etc. And that's pretty much what they do. They also recycle. So yeah, we've got that issue with copyrights, in that by reaffirming the copyright, it's just like the statute of limitations. There is a statute of limitations on copyrights, but they have decided these legal eagles have decided that they want to renew the copyright so that Disney and everybody else can continue to make more money and recycle all of their old products. And we don't have any choice in the matter. We have to accept their copyright control. It's totally, it'd be like Jesus saying, I want to claim I got reincarnated and I want my grail back. And I want you all to pay for it. So you have to give me a residual for all of your Bibles, because you've taken my living word, so to speak, and sold it. I mean, really, literally, that's what it is. And that's, so same thing.
It seemed Paul was certainly ployed into working with the governments, as he would reveal, and perhaps Paul felt that which he was providing was beneficial, but with a controlled human farmed planet, everything is utilized for control purposes, including any and all alien expertise and ingenuity. And yes, generally, greys work with the controllers, but the movie presents how those, perhaps not in a collaboration and a part of the controller systems, could be conceivably duped into being so. Though with greys being telepathic, it's unlikely most, if not all, species that have such heightened cognitive developed species abilities would not realize the situation. And as it is with the controllers, they make use of the skills of others, but should they outlive their usefulness, there is a good chance they may be terminated, as the nature of the dark force consciousness is along brutish, aggressive, cutthroat, overly competitive rivalry lines, even among their own kind. And Paul then would be on the run, his life in danger, as he would attempt to have himself extracted by his own species at the Wyoming Devil's Tower site. And really, as Clive, Graham and Paul would seemingly get along, despite a few issues, it rather reveals how, regardless of differences in the collective consciousnesses of species, most individuals are not that different, all just trying to survive, trying to establish comfortable spots in creation and chase what ideas and thrills hold appeal for them. Paul would certainly have some amazing abilities of his own, invisibility, healing skills, etc. Again, any individual can have, be, and create whatever they want, as the simulation always effects what we desire, chase, and seek. And so, all these various skills can be developed individually or as part of the collective consciousness of a species. Generally, such abilities are accessed through the ethereal vehicle, the seat of the psychic sciences, where effectively manipulation of creation can be so, regardless of the agreements through the consciousness that present the limitations and laws of physics of the physical life level. To bypass the consciousness has us beyond however it is constructed in regards to the limitations on the physical level simulation. So effectively, to conquer the mind, the emotions, to access the ethereal, opens up unlimited potentiality for creational alteration. This would include such things as shape-shifting, bi-location, levitation, etc., a stepping aside from that which through the consciousness dictates such things can't be done. And as much as we can alter our own simulation through ethereal means, we can alter the simulation of those that share it with us, as since we are in their simulation, they are in agreement with what we are, our consciousness, and therefore have effectively decided to experience our consciousness and all that it comprises of. As such, a creational manipulator agreed to can then manipulate your experience in ways that are according to the individual's decided consciousness of intent and inclination. Stage show magicians can hypnotize individuals that they can't see certain things, even though they are plainly apparent to the rest of the audience, as though agreement to the manipulator has them able to alter an individual's consciousness, that certain files can be altered, added, or in the case of something made invisible, removed. Because you can't decode into your simulation something that isn't in your consciousness. And invisibility can extend then to the creational manipulator's own body vehicle, though it seems the decided limitation of this skill was that Paul had to hold his breath for it to be so. In reality, any limitations or features or drawbacks with a skill or ability are really what we have in fact decided. Maybe then a species collective consciousness agreement that is ingrained, that allows for invisibility, but only if one holds his or her breath. And who knows what circumstances dictated this particular limited idea to be installed in the collective species consciousness of Paul. Very likely now a subconscious, once agreed to, collective file established long ago in the species' history, and now would be considered as just the way it is. This ability to alter the consciousness of others would extend to alien abductions also, as the files, the experiences, can be erased from the consciousness of the event, although it seems the abducting aliens generally can't get at the causal akashic files, where every experience is stored, as many abductees do have a partial or full memory recall over time. Details of it slip through in their dreams, the real side, or through hypnosis can the causal memory vehicle be accessed, or through real awareness can all be known, a real awareness connected to, that is through all creation and all personal self-consciousness, and can show the personal self anything that it needs to see, and this could well include abduction events that the alien abductors had managed to remove from the memory vehicle. And in regards to healing, as everything we experience, we have brought into effect through our choices and decisions, so it follows that anything of an adverse nature, any ailment or illness or condition, are effects we are experiencing due to the ideas we had created and agreed to, causes set in motion that effected as such, that even can play out across lifetimes. And yes, healing is and can be done to varying degrees and successes, but if a healer is ridding you of an effect, you must experience, as per the nature of the design of the simulators, of cause to effect, then this effect doesn't just vanish, but rather gets taken on by the healer. they take on and shoulder the effect, healing the inflicted, yes, but these are effects they then must deal with themselves, and many healers become very ill after years of taking on the karma, the effects of others. This was rather shown in the movie, as Paul had quite the developed ability to take on the afflictions of others, curing Ruth's blindness, and even restoring Graham from a fatal gunshot. And as he did this, so would he momentarily take on their effects, to the extent that he nearly died by taking the karma, the effect of being shot, from Graham. Although with awareness can effects taken on behalf of others be managed with greater ease. The real guides will take hits and karma from those on their awareness processes on occasion, as they know how to work the karma off. And it's very conceivable that healers could become more adept at, yes, taking on karma as they heal, but then working it off also, that they are not overly adversely impacted by it. And of all the individuals in the movie, it was the boy in the comic shop who, on seeing Paul, had the most indifferent reaction. As children are not so conditioned, literalized, and absorbed into the social consciousness as they will later become, as they go through the schooling systems and become adults. And with adults, as they are boxed into limited considerations of life, anything beyond what they think life is, or what they've been programmed to agree that life is, according to the controllers, anything beyond this box, and the reaction will be anything from shock, fear, to denial. But children, before indoctrination, still have a far more open, expanded sense of what's possible, and they just take things as they come, situations and occurrences that enter their experience, they simply accept and tell it as it is. If they see aliens or have invisible friends, they will matter of factly accept and inform all who will listen that they do, until they learn not to, as the need to be socially acceptable outweighs the want to say things as they are. And ultimately, all involved, the main characters in the movie, those that took the risk to go with the adventure, would become all the more aware for it, and such experience would hold them in good stead, as it had opened up their sense of what's possible, and maybe they will continue their journeys, risk-take further, to see and be more, and inevitably that must culminate in a recognizing of the real awareness, and taken to its conclusion recognition of the isness, and standing real in the true reality as the real light beings we all in fact are.